Hi everyone, Dave Knight from Do3 Coaching. I want to take you through a quick video. I was approached by a lady called Pat who swims with our Solihull squad here in the West Midlands, asking me, Dave, I've been coming for a couple of years now and I feel like I've plateaued, she said. Am I going to get any better? And we've worked with Pat for a couple of years and there's various bits and bobs we've done, but we hadn't had a closer look at Pat for quite a while, so decided to get the camera out and have a look to see what was happening underneath the water during the squad session. So I thought it'd be useful just to do this recording, just to kind of go through what we saw and how we fed that back to Pat and what we've asked her to do to try and improve the issues that she's having with her stroke. Alright, so I'm just going to pop over to the iPad here and I'm going to start showing you some footage of Pat. Now this is a very short clip. It was a poolside grab of some video footage, so it's super short, so don't expect too much, and it's also just from underneath the water. But it shows us quite a lot about what's going on with Pat's stroke. So Pat swims in lane 1 most of the time, which is our less speedy lane at Solihull. She's in great shape. She's a super fit lady, trains really hard, but just isn't getting the progress in the water that she would quite like. Okay, so we'll have a closer look at her to see what's happening with her stroke. Okay, so I'm just going to play this through here and effectively just say what I see, and this is kind of a similar process that I went through with Pat, and this really shows the value of video analysis. There's only so much you can see from above the water, but once you get the cameras down beneath the water, you really start to see what's happening. As you can see here, Pat is swimming with paddles on. This wasn't something I asked her to do during the squad. She just feels that she can get a bit more purchase on the water with the paddles on, so the footage is all with paddles on. So as we can see here, first of all, Pat is breathing there to the right hand side. So the hand that's in the water, her left hand, is her non-breathing arm at this moment in time. And what we're looking at is to see what happens with the hand. So one of the reasons I kind of thought you might be quite interested in this is because, in my opinion, the initial stages of the catch are one of the most difficult areas for swimmers to get to grips with. Okay, and when I say get to grips with, I literally mean get to grips with getting hold and getting grip of the water at the front of the stroke there. So what we're looking at and seeing with Pat here, and hopefully this pen will work, is quite a straight arm coming down from the shoulder there. Okay, and we're going to carry on playing this through. And what we're looking for really is we're looking for at which moment does Pat actually start to push some water this way. Okay, the way she's coming. In order for Pat to propel herself forwards, she needs to be pushing water back towards her to push herself through the water. Okay, so at the moment, Pat is pushing down here rather than pushing backwards. So again, if we play this footage forwards here, as the hand comes down deeper into the water, there we're starting to generate some water this way, but it's still not coming back. Oops, it's still not coming back and pushing directly back the way we'd like to see it. Okay, sometimes when you push down at the front of the stroke here, what can actually happen is it acts as almost like it's like you're leaning on your hand, and it can actually act as a lever for you to kind of actually push your chest up, because you're pushing down with the hand at the front of the stroke, and it can actually make you lift your chest slightly. We try and avoid that because lifting the chest can cause the legs to drop. But anyway, we'll carry on playing this through. So what we're also seeing with Pat's hand here, and this is what we can see with just a couple of strokes, is you can see her arm is actually quite straight. So, and we'll have a better look from a different angle on the way back on the way back down the other side of the pool. But the arm is actually pretty straight. So she's now going to enter the water with the right hand. It comes in, and what you can see here is actually we've been telling Pat to try and get up and over the front of the stroke here. So rather than pushing down straight, we want her to get a good angle on the hand so she can get this forearm a little bit more vertical, so she can start to push that water back behind her. She's obviously aware of this, Pat, because she is actually digging the hand in there, as you can see. It's not quite working for her at the moment, which is one of the things that we spoke about. And then what we're seeing is we're dropping the elbow. Okay, so again, we're looking for at which point is Pat starting to push the water back this way. And as you can see quite clearly there, she's just leaning on that hand, and actually the water is being pushed downwards. So again, no propulsion. So we start to build up a picture from Pat as to why she's actually not generating too much propulsion. Her arm turnover is quite good. Her body position is quite good. So if we clear this and actually play the footage through, and we pause it there, see Pat's body position is actually pretty good. And when I talk about body position, we are talking about her position in relation to the surface of the water. I've seen some swimmers and their leg position or their body position is like this. So Pat actually is pretty good there. Her toes are pretty pointed. I'm not too concerned about her kick. Her bottom is on the surface of the water there. Not too concerned. She's got a good turnover. There's a lot of good things happening with Pat's stroke there, but as you can see, she wants to go a bit faster, and what's happening is she's just not getting grip at the front of the stroke. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a quick clip of Rebecca Adlington, multiple Olympic champion. I'm sure most of you have heard of her. So we're just going to, in fact, what I'll do here is compare to Rebecca Adlington just here. Okay. Now, bear with me. I'm just going to find a decent part in the footage here where we can actually see what happens with Becky's stroke. Here we go. So, bearing in mind, Rebecca Adlington is a highly trained swimmer, and she's swimming for many years since she was a child. Great flexibility, great fitness. So we're not quite comparing like with like, but we just use this video so you can try and visualize what it is that we're trying to achieve with Pat. Okay, as you can see here, Becky has reached forward with the left hand. And if we just play this forwards, what I think is amazing about Becky is you can actually almost feel like you can pin that elbow in place. And the forearm drops and the elbow still stays pretty high. And now what she's starting to do is she's starting to generate all this propulsion. So even from the front of the stroke, right from the front of the stroke, if we look at when Becky actually starts to generate propulsion, she's right, if we take it right back to the top here, she's actually starting right from the front of the stroke, starting to generate some propulsion there. The elbow stays high. And now she's generating propulsion using all of this. Hand, forearm, upper arm. And if you look at what happens when she pushes it all the way through, she's still pushing back here. So she's got an amazing, unsurprisingly for an Olympic champion, an amazing catch. And as she pulls through the stroke, she pushes the water back all the way through there. And we can see that again on the right hand side. So, and again, this actually looks even better from this side, I think. Again, if we pin that elbow in place, the elbow stays high and the forearm just drops right the way down. So we can see this nice angle forming in the forearm. Forearm continues to drop, and then she's again got this huge paddle. So not just a hand, this huge paddle pushing back in the direction she came. That's what we want to. That's what we want to see in relation to a catch and a pull through the catch and pushing the water all the way back behind you. So if we go back to let's get rid of Becky there. No offense to Becky. If we go back to Pat and play that in full speed here, you can see quite clearly there. She's pushing back through the water. Sorry, pushing down through the water. Here we go. She's coming back again. See it quite clearly. She's pushing down with each stroke. Okay. Right, now, so what do we do about this? What do we do about this? Well, first of all, we need to get Pat to understand what it is that she's doing wrong. And again, this is the power of video analysis. I showed Pat exactly pretty much what I've shown you, and she can then visualize what it is that she needs to do, as in get those hands spearing a little bit deeper and keeping that elbow up high at the beginning of the stroke, the front of the stroke. So if I just draw it on here, so we're a little bit more about what we'd expect. So we would expect the hand, she's not too bad actually at this point, just clear that off. She's actually not too bad, but we'd expect it to be high, and then the forearm coming down, and then the hand coming down in this kind of direction here. And as you can see, as Pat progresses through the stroke, it's staying a little bit too straight. And again, on the right hand side, the hand comes in. This is the one that she really kind of digs in with. And if you remember from last time, the whole hand comes down flat. So ideally, the hand is actually, arm is actually coming out sideways and then forwards and then down. Ideally, she'd be extending further forwards, and then the forearm coming down. I've done that very straight there, but you can see what I mean. And then the forearm's coming down, and keeping the wrist below the elbow and the elbow below the shoulder at all times. Quite a difficult maneuver to try and, or difficult position to get yourself into when you're swimming in the water. These things are quite a little bit easier to work on in terms of dry land training with bands. So you can stand poolside with some bands and you can practice getting your hands below the wrist, below the elbows. But what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to just drop into the drills library on here and show you a video from Swim Smooth about sculling. Okay, so we're looking for skull number 1. Here we go. And I'm just going to whiz forward to get to the relevant part. Now, from this particular angle, it's not hugely obvious what Paul's doing. This is Paul Newsome, the founder of Swim Smooth here. And what he's doing there is just sculling the hands backwards and forwards. This is skull number 1. I'm just going to play this through here. All right, so in a minute, the camera will drop underneath the water and you'll start to see the position that Paul is actually sculling in. I'm just going to whiz this forward because the camera drops underneath the water here. Here we go. So if you imagine, the idea of this drill is that you have a pull buoy in between your legs and you're just washing those hands from side to side at the front of the stroke. And you're getting used to your hands and arms being in that catch position at the front of the stroke here. And this is, again, the forearm, the fingertips below the wrist, below the elbows, and below the shoulders there. So if this was Pat on here, she'd be more inclined to be coming up and then the hands being up in this kind of position here. It's not very clear. I think you can just about see that on there. Okay, so sculling. Just do that for half a length or thereabouts, and then the best thing to do at that point is to swim out the rest of the length and actually really try hard to keep those elbows up as you're sculling, as you're actually carrying out your full stroke. What I sometimes advise people to do is to get your head up, get their heads up, and actually have a look. Turn your brain on, turn your eyes on, and actually have a look and see what kind of position the hands are. It's surprising how many swimmers just swim without really thinking about it. Another thing you can actually do is swim directly over the black line or the blue line in the pool, and actually again get your head up and make sure that the black line or the blue line is in between the hands, and you're kind of almost pulling yourself, I'm a little bit restricted by space here, but almost pulling yourself along that line with the line in the center. And again, fingertips below wrists, below elbows all the time, making sure that you've got this nice paddle here that you can push back with. So pretty straightforward. That's one particular drill we'd get Pat to do, and that's certainly what she's going to be doing in the squad quite a lot from now on. And also, what happens? This is quite a good drill in terms of demonstrating what happens if you don't do this correctly. You actually start to generate some negative propulsion, i.e., you start going backwards. All right. So just to forward it here, and here we go. So Paul starts to change the hand position and you can just see putting his hands up, and he stops dead in the water. It's a really good clear example as to what happens when you don't have your fingertips and your hands down at the front of the stroke, getting hold of that water. You can actually start to move backwards and generate some negative propulsion, if you like. All right, so big no-no. So in swimming, we like to keep things nice and simple. We work on one or two things at a time. Most of the time, it's just one thing at a time because it gets difficult to concentrate on any more than one thing at a time. So what we're doing with what we've done with Pat there is, like I say, first of all, go through the video with her, make her sure that she's completely aware of what's going on, and then we actually get her to put the pull buoy in and really spend some time sculling, skull number 1, and then actually carry out some full stroke and try and maintain that same position while we all keep a close eye on her. As with all swimming correction kind of issues, it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, and a lot of feedback. It's worth having someone keeping an eye on the correction process that you're going to make sure you don't slip back, particularly when you get tired. All right, so short and sweet. I hope you found that useful. Say it's one of the most important range of movements, one of the most important kind of areas that people struggle with within the stroke is getting hold of the water at the front of the stroke. If you don't get hold of the water, you're not going to be able to push any behind you, and you're not going to go very quick. All right, so it's worth working on that for sure. All right, so yeah, that's all. I hope you found that useful. If you've got any feedback, drop us a message, and yeah, I should hopefully speak to you guys soon. Take care. Bye bye.